Okay, so in this video I'm going to explain briefly how to name organic compounds. First thing you need to do is you need to identify the longest chain in your molecule. However, before you do that, you want to check to make sure you don't have one of the following groups at one of the terminals. So if you have an aldehyde group, which is a C double bond O H, or a COHO group. If you have a carboxylic acid group, C double bond O OH or COOH. If you have a nitrile group, which is a C triple bond N, which is CN, or if you have an amide group, which is a C double bond O, and then NH2, which is CONH2, these groups have to be on carbon 1. They have to be at the end of your chain, even if that chain is not the longest chain. So in the molecule that I've given you here in the middle, you can see that we have an aldehyde group. So the longest chain must start on this carbon. So this has to be carbon 1. And our chain will then run across here. Now this side chain up to the top is obviously shorter or the same length as the side chain to the left. But here at this junction, if we continue to the left, that will just give us a chain of 4. But if we go down, that's going to give us a chain of 5. Okay, so our longest chain is going to be the chain of 5 running from our aldehyde group across to the left and then down to the bottom. So our longest chain has 5 carbons, which gives us the root of our name. So the root of our name is going to be pent. Now, since we have the aldehyde group at the carbon 1, we can already put the ending for that. Now we can see that this main chain is saturated, so AN, and then it's an aldehyde, so AL. So pentanal is our main chain with this aldehyde group on carbon 1. What we then need to do is we need to look for side chains and functional groups. And as you can see, we've got both of those. We have 2 functional groups, an OH up here, a hydroxyl group, and an amine group at the bottom here. And we've got 2 side chains, this side chain with 2 carbons up here, and a side chain with 1 carbon here. Okay, so the side chain of 2 carbons is going to be an ethyl side chain, and the side chain with 1 carbon is a methyl side chain. This OH is a hydroxy. The hydroxyl group is known as a hydroxy. Oops. And the NH2 is an amine or an amino group if we're using it as a prefix. So before we start stacking these up, we can decide where these are. So since our longest chain has to start at the aldehyde, the carbon in the aldehyde group is carbon 1, and the same is true for all of these functional groups. So the carbon in these functional groups is always carbon 1. And then we number from there. So the second carbon here is 2, 3, and then going down 4 and 5. So our amino group is going to be on carbon 2, so it's 2 amino. Our ethyl group is also on carbon 2, so 2 ethyl. Our hydroxy group is on carbon 3, so 3 hydroxy. And the methyl group is also on carbon 3. Okay, so we now know where everything is going to be, and all of these will be named as prefixes since we've already used the AL for the aldehyde as our suffix. We then need to put these prefixes in front of our name, and before we put them in, we must arrange them into alphabetical order. So the first of them is going to be our 2 amino group, so 2 amino, then 2 ethyl. Now the fact that they're both on carbon 2 is irrelevant at this point. It's because of the first letter in the name here, so A and then E. Then we're going to have our 3 hydroxy, and then our 3 methyl. Notice how I've separated the numbers from the words with little hyphens. The organization here, it doesn't matter how many of the group you've got. So if, for the sake of argument, I had 2 methyl groups in this molecule, it would be dimethyl. However, I would still put the methyl last out of these functional group because it's organized by the alphabetical, by the first letter of the name of the side chain or the functional group, which is M. The D in di doesn't matter. Okay, so we organize it like this. It's really important that you're able to name organic compounds. And if in doubt, if you're not quite sure what the name should be, if you're given a condensed formula, for example, you should always just draw out the entire molecule first so you can name it, because if you don't know what the molecule is, it becomes very difficult to do anything else with it later in terms of identifying mechanisms and reactions. So draw out the molecule first and then name it according to these rules so that you can then do the next steps.